123 for about 4 years now. We are based out of the Bay Area, so San Francisco, about a stone's throw from Pixar Media. So let's go ahead and talk about some practical matters first. The questions we always get are those slides available? Yes. Send an email to seo@webmarketing123.com. We also partake in social media as well. Please feel free to interact with us at webmarketing123, facebook.com/webmarketing123, and Google Plus webmarketing123. Of course, if you want to reach out to us and get a more detailed complementary analysis on your particular situation, your competitors, kind of what I'll go over in some of the live site analysis examples, feel free to reach out at, again, seo@webmarketing123.com. Oftentimes when we do those assessments, sometimes what we'll do is we'll put together kind of a detailed cost of not ranking on Google. So going through increasing the top number, that is number of people doing searches for your stuff, going through click-through rate metrics based off of what we see as you get ranking on page 1. So people physically clicking on your listing, how many visitors you're missing, how many leads you're missing or sales you're missing, and applying an average revenue per sale, we can give you a good sense of, by not doing this stuff today, it is costing your company X dollars to not do this stuff, and figure out whether or not that's a big deal or not, depending upon where you're at with your quarterly, yearly goals. A little bit about us. We are a digital marketing agency. We started off doing SEO when we originally started, and what we found is a lot of companies end up having different issues, and SEO is not the kind of silver bullet for every problem. Sometimes it makes sense to run paid campaigns because you don't rank organically for certain keywords. So we do run targeted PPC campaigns, using Marin software and kind of really diving deep and making sure that, for each click that you're getting that positive return on investment. We do run social media campaigns, so doing the tweets and posts and tying that back to revenue and that sort of thing. So we run social media campaigns, and we recently started to do some website design work. So getting your website, if you're on some type of static situation, you've been using Dreamweaver for years, or you're on a crappy CMS that just spits out nasty URLs, and your marketing team hates it. So we've kind of been doing some website redesign work as well. Yeah, so since 2004 we've been at this stuff. Just made the Inc. 500 list, one of the fastest growing private companies. So very super proud about that. So in terms of some of the companies that we've worked with, hopefully we've recognized some of these names, some big brands in there certainly. We recently rolled out this 2012 State of Digital Marketing Survey, where we asked about 500 marketing professionals what you see the value in, where are you currently seeing the value in terms of social media, SEO, pay-per-click, where are you seeing the return? In terms of the mix, 65% of that 500 surveyed were B2B, where 35% were B2C. You can download our report on our homepage, so webmarketing123.com. Go there, click on the download button, and you can get access to it. So after asking these 500 marketers, one of the main questions we wanted to know is, among SEO, PPC, and social media, where do you see, what is your number one objective? And from the B2B side, they said fully 60% was directed towards SEO, 21% towards social media, and 20% towards PPC. And this has been fairly consistent for quite some time now, which is by and large the lion's share in terms of focus return has been towards SEO. As a matter of fact, we looked. There's a HubSpot study that we'll also look at later on that also asked their clients where do they see the return in terms of closed deal. and the origins of those closed deals, and we'll look at some findings there that really kind of corroborate this focus towards SEO, ranking organically, naturally, where some folks are shifting more budgets towards social media, and PPC almost seems like that necessary evil. You got to do it because you don't rank naturally for it. So folks are kind of still, majority of their focus is on SEO. Paid search is, again, one of those necessary evils, and social media is becoming more and more important simply because, it's almost a requirement now of running a website. If you don't have a Facebook profile or a YouTube channel or Twitter feed or anything like that, it's almost like, well, why not? Less certain is it is how social media contributes towards paying customers. There's some tools out there that you can, attribution tracking and modeling, where you can look at how social tweets and posts contribute towards that paying customer. But are they 100% accurate? No, there's no tool out there that 100% this Facebook post contributed towards this paying customer. I mean, there are tools out there that can help try to answer that, but it's really tough to tie ROI to social media. I mean, I'm sure there's a webinar happening right now where some guy's on there saying, hey, it's all about social media, and if you're not there, you're missing the boat. But my interjection there would be, well, can you tie Facebook posting and social media activity to closed-won paying customers, both from a B2B and B2C aspect? And I would wager they would probably say no. This is our second annual report. The first year we ran this, same type of response. SEO makes the biggest impact on lead gen for those B2B marketers, where 28% said they're focusing on it for increased awareness, and then 10% saying towards increased sales. And I would argue that tracked properly, we can tie these two together, which is increase sales from SEO as well as generate leads. It's oftentimes when we talk to folks, they kind of put SEO in a bucket and say, oh, that's just driving people to my site. If for the B2B folks on the line, if you have a CRM system like a Salesforce or a Sugar CRM or Siebel system, there is a way to tag leads within your CRM as having been derived from SEO activity. In fact, you can also pull in keyword level data and attach it to opportunity objects within your CRM and track it along sales cycles, so that at the end of the funnel, if I were to ask you how many closed-won deals you got from a given keyword, you'd be able to tell me. And how powerful would that be, right? Say you have a 12-month sales cycle, and at the end of that sales cycle, say it's a $100,000 deal, that you knew that paying customer came from X keyword. From a B2B standpoint, now that's again, that's kind of crawl, walk, and run scenarios we often see marketers in. That's firmly you're running. You're making marketing decisions, SEO decisions based off of closed-won deals on the SEO side. And if you want to kind of find out more about that particular scenario, feel free to reach out to me. I've been working on a tool and kind of closing that loop for quite some time now, and happy to have that discussion with you. In terms of the state of the search, a ton of people doing searches on Google every day, 4 billion searches, and that's only rising. 2004 to 2012. We've been doing these weekly webinars for years now, and the consistent kind of focus has been towards switching, shifting budget away from other channels to search marketing. In fact, before our main pitch to folks was, hey, you should be thinking about diversifying your marketing spend and shifting it towards search. Now that's no longer the argument we're having. Now it's a matter of, all right, among search marketing, where should I put my budget? Is it SEO? Is it PPC? Is it social media? And matter of fact, we had originally planned on running a webinar today on budgeting for search marketing. but we decided to change it last minute. We didn't get kind of as many registrants as we'd like, and that's surprising because folks now are in the middle of budgeting for 2013, and I put my thoughts together on as to why folks aren't interested in kind of budgeting for 2013, given now is the time you're doing it. And one of the biggest mistakes we always hear is, oh, I just took the same budget I had last year and kind of applied that for 2013. Or search marketing, it's kind of it's tough to break down, or I don't know how much to put towards it. And as a result, they end up putting that same money that they had last year into trade shows and print media or whatever ways you're marketing your stuff. When in fact, your competitors right now are budgeting for exactly this stuff, and it shouldn't be any wonder why you're consistently ranking behind them if you're not investing in this stuff today. And by investing, you have choices as marketers. You can either do it yourself, you can do nothing, or you can hire someone else to do it for you. And it's, oftentimes there's no clear direction as to when to make one decision versus another. And again, if you want some assistance in that process, given hopefully you're budgeting right now for 2013, feel free to reach out to us. I'd love to have that conversation with you. It's no surprise 95% of those clicks happen on page one. So for some of those keywords that you identify as super relevant, if you're not on page one, you're invisible. So if you're working, if you're doing this stuff in-house right now, if you're working with a company and you're not on page one, you might as well not be there. The majority of those clicks happen on page one, and kind of the real kicker is, it's great you're on page one now. You need to be in those top 3 positions. That's where the bulk of those clicks happen. Fully 60% of those clicks happen within those first 3 positions. So if you rank on page one, 10th position for a keyword, think of the war just starting. You'd be lucky to get maybe 1 or 2 clicks for every 100 searches in the 10th position on page one. That's kind of the reality here. You got to be in those first 3 positions. Your target audience, they're searching for you. There's studies every day that come out say, 57% of internet users search the web every day. 46%, of those daily searches are for products and services. And oftentimes there's a kind of a progression of people doing searches. And what we've done here is, given kind of how we run campaigns and the folks that work with us, we often see different levers that you pull at different stages of that buying cycle. In terms of introducers, people finding your brand for the first time, oftentimes folks will be doing keyword searches turn into the web. And particularly you B2B folks, I have an interesting statistic for you after this slide that'll hopefully open your eyes when, if you're sitting here saying, oh, well, there's not a lot of people doing searches for my highly niche product. Well, surprise, there is, and they're turning to the web to make that decision, even before they're talking to your sales folks. And I'll share that statistic after this slide. In terms of introducers, though, keyword searches, they're doing broad searches. Generic types of keyword searches. If you offer, some type of software, for instance, I might begin that search on, customer relationship management or CRM software, for instance, like the Salesforce example. I'm turning to the web a customer relationship management software or CRM software. And the reason I bring up this example is you should be targeting keywords at different stages of that buying cycle. You should have in your keyword kind of basket introducer types of keywords, influencers and closer keywords. And by introducers, those generic, almost thought leadership keywords. If I'm offering that CRM software, one of my keywords might be, why do marketers need CRM? Or, what is a CRM, for instance? And those aren't closing types of keywords. These are people early on in the buying cycle. So a good exercise that we often take with our clients is, how often, what types of keywords are you targeting at different stages of the buying cycle? And if you're if you want to reach these folks early on in the buying cycle, you need to go after informational-based keywords. And a big surprise we often find is, well, it might make sense to have an informational-based section on your website. So thought leadership content that goes in there, that's where your kind of content marketing should live, and going after thought-based types of keywords. So again, in that CRM example, why CRM? Why should I have a CRM? Of course, I would look at search volume, but it's oftentimes good to ask yourself, do I have keywords that target different buyers at different stages of the cycle? Good influencer channels that you can use, social media, search, display, PPC, that sort of thing, and retargeting or remarketing is another good lever to pull when you're trying to influence people within that buying cycle. They're starting with a problem recognition. They're doing informational searches. They then evaluate alternative vendors and thinking about sending out that RFP. The purchase decision is made, and then they finally purchase. But in terms of in the middle of that buying cycle, we find social media is a good tool to have. Not necessarily a good tool to introduce them to your brand, but to influence them along that sales cycle. Where remarketing, for a lot of you folks who haven't heard of that, and hopefully you have by now, it's a kind of a PPC tool that folks have been using. So let's say someone reaches your form, a landing page on your website, but for whatever reason they don't fill out that form. You can tag that individual as having reached that form, and even though they leave your website, you can then serve them up targeted reminders via the Google network. So say they're on a blog that has everything to do with CRM software, for instance, so CRM software blog, and they had reached your website landing page and didn't fill out that form. You can serve them up a banner ad reminding them, hey, you were at my website, here's a 10% discount code if you come back to us, or maybe a free demo, I'll walk you through it personally, type of a banner ad. So we find that kind of really performing well, oftentimes performing at a third of the cost for a lot of our clients. In other words, if they're if their cost per lead is $100, we can get that performing at a third of that. So a really effective channel. In terms of closers, search marketing, again, people turn into the web again, just as a validation that, are you guys legit before I send out that RFP or not? Model numbers, so SKUs. So a lot of you e-commerce folks out there who have 100,000 pages, making sure that each of your deeper product level pages are being indexed in Google and are optimized. And by optimized, I mean maybe bringing those SKUs within page titles, headers, alt tags, tooltips, that sort of thing, so that when people are doing searches for model numbers, that your page shows up. But the first challenge in that kind of problem is that you need to get that page indexed at least, so that Google has an opportunity to serve up that deeper product level page. And the only way you'll know that is if you have Google Webmaster Tools installed and have submitted your website via an XML sitemap, and then looking at pages submitted versus indexed. And I do entire webinars on Google Webmaster Tools and how best to kind of utilize that tool. And then, of course, branded terms, good closer. In terms of that statistic, this is a Forrester study that came out. Matter of fact, I think Google came out with one too recently. We had attended an event at Google. They have an office here in San Francisco that said 56%. But we'll stick with this one because this came out from Forrester a few months ago. It said that 70% of the B2B purchase decision is made before they talk to your sales team. I kind of pause there because a lot of folks, they question this and they say, oh, well, people aren't going to do a search for a Paraceltic pump. That's crazy. Well, one, I would challenge that, and I would say, well, how do you know that? The only way you would know that is if you kind of did some searches on that keyword, and there are tools that Google provides that gives you a sense of search volume. So if you're questioning, hey, I'm a highly niche B2B marketer, there's only a handful of people that would be doing searches on. I would challenge that, and I would say, well, do you know for sure? and you'd be surprised. But in terms of people turning to the web and doing searches for your stuff, 70% of these kind of decision makers are making their decision prior to even talking to your superstar sales rep. So one question I would have is, all right, so if people are making that decision prior to talking to them, they're looking for informational-based types of keywords. So again, that thought leadership type of keyword. Why CRM? Why do I need a CRM? Why do marketers use CRMs? These types of terms, and having thought leadership types of content, content marketing, that sort of thing within your website. It shouldn't be just all sales scripts. Because folks are savvier and savvier, they're turning to the web and they're making these decisions prior to even talking to you. So super important to make sure that you engage that B2B decision maker prior to them even finding your competitors. Top 10 tips on why CRM solutions helps drive revenue. So kind of beating them to the punch. The reason I like to go over this slide, there's a different strategy that you want to employ, and I like to go over this just to give a sense of click-through rates and where people are kind of clicking these days. And there's a time and place to run both an SEO campaign or an organic search campaign versus a paid campaign. And you would run a paid campaign when you don't currently show up naturally for those non-branded keywords. So again, that CRM software solution example. If I'm that guy and I do searches and I'm nowhere to be found organically, my only option is to then run a PPC campaign if the end goal is to show up on Google because X amount of people are doing searches for these terms. In terms of what we see in the way of click-through rate, though, and where the majority of searches go, this is a generalization, but this is kind of what we see, which is 90% of the search volume goes towards organic, and 10% is going towards the paid side. This used to be skewed completely towards organic, especially back in the day when when Google would highlight in yellow. For a lot of you folks that have been around for a while, been using search engines, they would highlight the paid section yellow. So really clear, hey, these are paid. We don't endorse them organically. So we would see that 10% be like right around 1 to 2% click-through rate. But now, as Google has realized, hey, we make 90% of our revenues from people jumping on AdWords. They're making it harder to differentiate paid versus organic, which is why they added this section a few years back by bringing paid above the fold. Back in the day, it was only paid on the right side. So more and more, Google's making it harder. As a matter of fact, the background color is super faint. You also have to tilt your screen in order to see, is that paid or organic? So sometimes it does make sense to run a paid campaign. And sometimes it even makes sense to show up both from a paid side and organically. And there have been some studies that came out that talked about this scenario where someone's bidding on a keyword and also in the #1 position. They call it cannibalization. You're cannibalizing your organic listing by paying for it. And Google came out with a study, in fact, and they said in this instance where you're running both a paid campaign in the #1 position and you're showing up organically in the #1 position, that the cannibalization rate is at 50%. So in other words, they would have clicked on your organic listing 50% of the time had you not. So in other words, you're cannibalizing your organic listing 50%. Whereas if you rank maybe in the 5th position organically and you show up in the paid listing, that cannibalization drops dramatically to like 4%. So takeaway there is sometimes it makes sense to run both a paid and organic at the same time. Might not make 100% sense if you rank in the #1 position organically. But hopefully this gives you a good kind of breakdown. And if you want to kind of reach out to me personally, and happy to kind of have this discussion and how it pertains to your business. no surprise, budgets are shifting to inbound channels. I think, again, that was another HubSpot study that said that I think it was inbound marketing cost 62% less than outbound marketing. And I think they even put a dollar figure to it. And they said that inbound average cost per lead was at about $143, where the outbound average cost per lead was at $373. So 62% less. And the way they were able to kind of figure that out was by having some tracking, people that use that HubSpot tool, they were able to kind of track people that came out inbound versus outbound. So, if someone were to ask me, hey, if you can get a channel to perform at 62% better, gotta believe I'm shifting that focus to those channels that are performing better. So, no surprise there. Here is another kind of study that they put out in terms of inbound marketing channels closing more deals. So just in looking at this right here, so the x-axis here is the marketing channel, so SEO, direct traffic, referrals, PPC, social media, and outbound. And then on the y-axis, we have the percentages here, lead to customer close in the way of a percentage. So essentially what this tells us is that for every 100 leads that come in from SEO activity, this study tells us that 15 of those 100 leads were able to be closed based off of SEO activity. Same holds true for direct. Whereas from PPC, the paid search side, for every 100 leads that come in, only 7 were able to be closed as having been originated from paid traffic, whereas social media at 4%. So again, no surprise, if folks are shifting, it's no surprise why folks are, 60% of their focus is on SEO, because they're able to close that loop and tie it back to that channel that performed for them. So, begs the question, how successfully are you using digital marketing to advance your business? And, I'm in a unique position. I talk to a lot of marketers at kind of different stages. And, one of my first questions is, are you able to track closed deals by marketing channel? So for every 100 closed-won deals, from the B2B side, how many came from SEO, PPC, and social media? And 9 times out of 10, it's a tracking issue. And I've heard everything from, oh, my CMS won't let me, to, oh, we use Marketo or Eloqua and we lose the closed loop tracking capability of that, or I just never saw the need for it. And I think that CMOs are being asked more and more to think more along the lines of kind of revenue-driving individuals. And if I'm a higher up, I'm going to start asking these questions more and more. Based on that $250K in marketing spend, how much revenue did you get, or how much pipeline revenue did you get based off of that? And I remember working with one gentleman last year where he was part of a larger parent organization. He was one individual business unit, and he was afraid he was going to lose his job because he wasn't able to close that loop. So we got him on a system that was able to close the loop on PPC traffic and SEO, and able to then say, okay, for that $250K and marketing spend that you spent, you were able to generate $1.1 million in pipeline revenue, and he ended up getting a promotion because of that. So kind of the power of being able to close that loop and tie revenue based off of marketing channel is super, super impactful. So hopefully that spurs you if you're sitting there saying, well, I couldn't answer that even if I wanted to. Sometimes you have to make some tough decisions, which is, hey, that CMS that you built internally that was super awesome is actually not so awesome, and here's why. So getting the proof as to, there's a better way to do this stuff and there's a better way to track it. You just simply need to take the initiative, because higher-ups are asking these questions more and more, and eventually they're going to start putting some tough, hard goals in place in terms of you better hit this or else. And we're starting to hear that more and more, which is why we're getting more and more people coming to us. All right, so now let's take a look at the kind of live site analysis examples, and let's look at oh, and Nancy Browning, thanks for the important information there. Please move on. I need to get to important content. I appreciate that. We do listen to your advice, but the reason I kind of go on about these stories is because it's important, and while you might not appreciate it, there's someone else out there that really does. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples here. So the first one, Doug Thaynor, he wants us to take a look at franchisegeneration.com. Decent URL there. And the keywords that you want to rank for is franchise lead generation and franchise marketing. So let's see where you currently rank right now. So let's hop out of the webinar. Let's bring up a browser, and let's see what's going on here. Okay, so it's franchise lead generation is the keyword. So a few things that, well, actually, I like to do another step before this. So I mentioned that there are tools out there to give you a sense of search volume. So this is one such tool. Do a Google search for Google keyword tool, and this will pop up. So you plug in this keyword, franchise lead generation, and let's put in the CAPTCHA there. Hopefully I got that right. And let's see how many people are searching this keyword on a monthly basis. So be careful of the match types here. You got broad, exact, and phrase. Broad meaning loosely related. What are the other terms that are related to franchise lead generation, not necessarily in that order? Then there's exactly. How many people are exactly typing in franchise lead generation, both globally as well as locally? So here this tool tells us, and again it's a tool, not 100% accurate, but directionally it should be getting you in the kind of the right direction. Google says from a paid standpoint that this is a highly competitive keyword, and here's how many people are searching globally and locally. And it looks like a lot of the variations of these keywords, super competitive. So competitive space, and that's actually the other benefit of using a tool like this. It gives you an idea for keyword expansion. What are the keywords that make sense? And plus how many people are searching for it. So at least you have a sense of, all right, how many people are doing searches for this stuff. So I would start here before you decide, hey, I think it's going to be, franchise lead generation. I would say, okay, well, are there other keywords in here that make more sense, that might be easier to rank for because they're not as competitive, or they might have more search volume? So usually before we start any campaign, the first step in this process is keyword expansion. I can't tell you how many people's minds I've changed just based off of doing expansion. While at the front of the campaign they thought it was this one keyword that was going to move the needle, when in fact it was this 150 other keywords. So start there, I would urge you. And you might have already done that, and you might have already worked with another company, and they've already done all this beautiful work for you. But for some of those other folks who are starting off from scratch, I would start here, then begin your keyword expansion process. Once you've done that, there's usually another good step I would take, which is, and I'm going to bring up some examples here, and I'm going to bring up a company that we recently finished this process for, which is a keyword mapping document. I can't tell you how liberating it is to when we talk to folks after we finish this stage of it. So we've looked at sample keywords, we've expanded that list, and then we've mapped them, physically mapped those keywords to pages on the site that make sense. So let's go through this example really quick. So we've already done the keyword expansion. Now we want to say, all right, how important are these keywords? Just gut check. 1 not being priority, 10 being super priority. Where do we currently rank? So we have benchmark. And how many people are searching these terms on a monthly basis? And number of competing web pages, you do a search for, in your case, franchise lead generation. Google says, here's 10 listings out of 1.2 million, for instance. So, what I would say is I would look at the kind of full set of competing web pages based on your keywords, and then kind of sort them from highest competition to low, and then go after the low competition keywords first. And that's kind of how I usually approach it. But you'll go through this process, and you will find keywords where you had no idea that you should go after, but you've identified, wow, that is important. And we do rank just outside page 1, and there's more people searching this keyword than maybe others within your keyword basket. And it's not that competitive, but there's no clear kind of page on your website that you can target it to. So you're going to have to create one for it. So you'll find kind of low-hanging fruit just by going through this process alone. So again, start with keyword expansion, then build your blueprints so that if I were to go to any one of these pages, hey, this keyword, application performance management vendors, needs to be in that content within page title, H1, alt tags, tooltips, bolded, somewhere from an on-page optimization standpoint. All right, so we've realized franchise lead generation, 110, and you gave me another keyword too, franchise marketing. So in terms of which ones are more important, look at search volume and see what Google tells you. So it looks right here, franchise marketing might be a better keyword to go after because there's more people typing it on a monthly basis, right, versus your franchise lead marketing. So might make sense to put this in a different priority, franchise marketing, because there's more people searching on it. All right, now let's go back to the search engine results page again. And again, your website is franchisegeneration.com. Okay, so I'm not logged in. This is another gotcha, which is a lot of folks say, oh, I already went on page 1. Well, you need to make sure you're not signed in and you've turned off customizations. Oftentimes Google will give you personalized search results, whether you want them or not. So you need to kind of go through the settings and make sure that you're not logged in and you're getting true representative search results. So I'm not logged in, and there you are right there, franchisegeneration.com. So you've been focusing on this clearly based off of kind of just best practices, keyword in first position of the page. I'm sorry, you're below this here. Let me erase that. And this is actually interesting. These guys right here, they rank above you. Notice what they've done. They've decided to create a dedicated page, franchise-lead-generation.html, and they were able to get ahead of you. Interesting. So because you've decided to target and this is actually a beautiful example. These guys are focusing on SEO, no doubt. They have already working with an agency or they have someone in-house focusing on this stuff. And I can tell you that because they were able to get a deeper page, franchise lead generation, ranking above your homepage, even though that's your #1 keyword based off of your placement. So anytime I see this, I start thinking, oh boy, they've really done a really good job in terms of their optimization. They've got the deeper page ranking. They've got it in the areas that search engines like to see them. That is page titles. They've mapped it out to that deeper page, and they have it within the meta description. So from an on-page optimization standpoint, I give these guys an A+. That's not to say you don't deserve an A. Hey, you got it in the page title, and you got it within the meta description. So I mean, you've done just as good. But I'm curious if you have a franchise lead generation page. Let's go ahead and take a quick look out of curiosity. So let's open up in a new tab here. So this should be it. Sure enough, you did it. So you have that deeper franchise lead generation.php page. Let's look at on-page optimization. Highlight each instance. All right, so right away, if I were you, I would get it within the content. And it looks like you do what we do too. Congratulations. You offer SEO, PPC, and social media for your franchisees. Good call to action. I would change the submit button to maybe get your complimentary analysis. That's more of a usability recommendation. But, I don't know if you attend marketing experiments, seminars, but if you were to show this to one of their main guys, Dr. Flint McLaughlin, he would say F minus based off of this. And I'd probably do some A/B testing too, based off of your calls to action. So if you're saying this is an important keyword for your business, and you're not even supplying it within the content of the page, yeah, you have it within kind of your breadcrumb navigation here, and you have it within your footer. So it's probably not a surprise why Google's not giving you more credit for it, because you're not mentioning it within the content. And believe it or not, what we've found in some of the testing we've done is Google prefers keywords within actual content text versus breadcrumb navigation and footer. They give more preference to it, believe it or not. If you were asking me what percentage, I couldn't tell you. What I do know is that Google looks at over 200 plus algorithm kind of variables, this being one of them. And I've kind of optimized campaigns placing keywords within the actual content and seen a good lift with nothing else changed. So that's one thing I would kind of focus on as well. And I'm sure based on your campaign, you're probably driving inbound links to this deeper page versus your home page. Yes, you have a good domain name, franchisegeneration.com, and I imagine you probably paid a pretty penny for it too in the hopes of getting SEO lift. But you're losing right now based off of a guy who has not a keyword-rich domain and probably building deep links to that franchise lead generation page. So the tool I like to use in terms of SEO kind of link building, I'm sure we've all heard of SEO Moz before. Let's look at Open Site Explorer. So it should be no surprise these days that link building is an important function. This is news to you. You got a ways to go. In other words, links from other websites pointing to your website is important. Google looks at these links as votes, and the more votes you get, the more credible your website is. So I'm going to do an interesting thing here in that I want to look at your deeper page. And let's see if you guys are doing any deep linking comparable. So I'm looking at the website that ranks #1 for franchise lead generation versus your guys' deep page, even though your home page ranks. I'm curious to see what we see here. So SEO Moz, they provide some funky kind of results here in the way of Moz rank and trust rank. I pay less attention to that. What I do focus on is page authority. So what this tool is telling us is that the deeper franchise generation page has more authority than your deeper franchise generation page. And the other thing I look at is external follow links, and it doesn't look like there's a ton of links being pointed from other websites to both of your deeper pages. But what they do is they have a lot of internal links. So within their website, they link better to their site, where it looks like this only recognizes one. So what I might do is maybe try to better internal link your deeper lead generation page in hopes of kind of getting that deeper page ranking. There's this other tab here called Anchor Text. I doubt it'll give us anything because it didn't recognize any deep links. So let's see if we have here. Yeah, see, so within their website, these are all internal links pointing to that deeper franchise lead generation page. So if the end goal here is to kind of beat these guys who have their deeper page ranking over your home page, what I might do is do two things. Do a better job at maybe internal linking the home page to your deeper franchise lead generation page, because it looks like your competitors are doing that per that tool's results. And what I would also do is do a deep linking campaign. That is maybe some press releases top 10 tips on, franchise lead generation, content, with that anchor text link, franchise lead generation, linking not to your home page, but to that deeper franchise lead generation page. And I would try to get that deeper page ranking as opposed to having your home page rank, because they were able to do it. All right, so I think I'll leave it, and I could have done a lot more simply on kind of the usability recommendations here. I do like the fact that you have that in-page form. Oftentimes folks will put just the contact us, and hopefully they click on that. So I do like what you've done here, but I'd probably change some call to action buttons and maybe do some A/B testing on some of the content just to see which performs better for you. And again, get that keyword in that content. All right. So what I think I'll call it a day there. So let me go ahead and get back. If you want a kind of similar analysis like that, I mean, we do kind of take a deep dive on your competitors, your keywords, kind of what it's costing you to not do this stuff today. And if you're budgeting for 2013, definitely make this a priority. And I'd love to talk with you. Feel free to download our 2012 State of Digital Marketing Report on our homepage. If you want a kind of consultation, you can reach out both to me, Mike at webmarketing123.com, or SEO at webmarketing123.com. All right. Thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Thank you for your trust, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Have a good one, folks. Bye.